Welcome to the Dateable AF podcast, because women dating women is wild, wonderful, and occasionally a disaster. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Kyle, a therapist in private practice.
And I'm your co-host, Rachel Howell, researcher extraordinaire.
Hello. Welcome everyone to season 2, episode 5 of the Dateable AF podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about love languages or lost in translation, why your partner's way of showing love might feel like a foreign language, and how to actually get the message.
I don't like them
chuckles.
I don't like the term.
Rachel does not like love languages, y'all.
I like them, but it's such a campy term.
Well, we're going to get into this a little more later, but I think we're going to look at the love languages as a framework or an entry into a conversation, as opposed to something that we're going to write into stone. But I think that, one of the ways that you can look at it is, your partner brings home snacks thinking that that's going to be the thing that makes your day, and you really just want a hug. I personally want the snacks and
I was going to say, I didn't have to think hard about which one you wanted, but
you got to bring me Twizzlers and give me a hug while you're giving it.
Cinnamon bears. Oh, God. I don't know that I want either one. Snack or a hug.
All right, then I'm not bringing you anything.
I want that paycheck when you get home.
Somebody got to bring home the bacon. Yeah, money's my love language. Gary Chapman forgot to put that one on the list.
I knew something was missing. It was glaring.
It's the 6th love language that I'm talking about.
Over time, I've done some research, and it seems to be pretty strong. I think there's some good empirical data out there to support
the existence of a 6th love language.
That there are definitely women out there that see money as their love language.
Definitely, we've seen it. We've seen it.
God.
Oh, my goodness. Well, let's talk a little bit about where this term came from. It came from a book by an author named Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages. And these are things that resonate with a lot of people, but they've also sparked quite a bit of debate. And we're going to talk about both the positives and perhaps the controversy around this. So what are some of the reasons that people really love this idea of there being 5 love languages?
I can understand why people were drawn to it, because it actually put words on things that I do think were conflicts of the ways that people weren't getting their needs met in a relationship, and the assumptions that were being made with people whenever they were not meeting one another's needs. That's the way I see it, is just putting words on something to help people understand more about what was going on.
Yeah, I think that's so true, because what the love languages do is they clear up some kind of mixed signals. Because what I've seen a lot in my practice, and actually even in my own relationship sometimes, is that if we receive love in a certain way, like, oh, I love it when you bring me gifts, then I'm going to be inclined to try to give love in that same way. And that may not be how you receive love. So I'm bringing you gifts all the time thinking, wow, I'm really showing this person that I love them. And you're like, man, all I want is a hug, and I'm never getting a hug. This person must not love me. And so I think it gives words to that phenomenon.
So, I just had a memory.
Oh, God.
Do you remember a long time ago, whenever, I can't remember if you really loved the Cranberries or the Cowboy Junkies?
I think it's the Cranberries.
The Cranberries?
Mm-hmm.
And you were in their music, and I loved the Cowboy Junkies.
You gave me a Cowboy Junkies CD.
Y'all wonder why we're exes.
Exactly. That's how I broke up with her, y'all. It's a perfect example of like, man, if somebody gave me a Cowboy Junkie CD, that would show me that they love me. Yeah.
Oh my God. I just
Okay. Our podcast is done. That's it. So everyone.
that's it. Oh my goodness. Ooh, bad girlfriend.
I hope you've learned a little something since then for your new lady friends out there.
I think I have, maybe. But I'd have to stay with one long enough to know.
This is true.
Oh God.
Stay tuned, everyone. We're gonna find out.
Oh God. Okay, so where were we?
Oh, I love it. Well, we were talking about why people do appreciate this framework that Gary Chapman created. So on the flip side of that, what are the critiques about this? Why do some people really balk at this idea, including, I believe, you?
Yeah, I was doing some research on this because I was curious about this, specifically related to queer lesbian relationships and whether or not this the terms worked in our world. And what I did find is there's a couple of researchers that did actually do some study on this, on his 5 love languages. And that it was, the theory didn't test out. It was in the Journal of Marital and Family Therapy. Their study was published in that. And the research revealed that identifying and expressing a primary love language did not necessarily lead to higher relationship satisfaction. This is specifically in the gay and or queer and lesbian community. And there are a couple of reasons why. One is that Chapman's framework origins has a faith-based counseling basis, which I didn't know that.
Yep, I know. It's kind of based in evangelical Christianity. I think that's his background. And right. I also want to say, I think that there could be some helpful things for people to glean from this theory, even if that is not your particular belief system or leaning.
Right. I think so too. And again, I do think the value of having some words, however you use them, but having words to more clearly define what matters to you and what's important to receive is valuable. The other thing is just that because of that foundational premise of his work being faith-based, that has typically been sort of a homophobic environment, and he's had some homophobic I think language in the past that's been out there. So that to me says that there's another element of critique of his work, that it may not be just about the outcome of the study, but also the perceptions going in, the people's perceptions of how they face the language. The 2 pieces of it that did actually show satisfaction in the research was quality time and words of affirmation. Those did correlate with higher relationship satisfaction in our community.
If those were your love languages, then you reported higher levels of satisfaction?
Yeah, and specifically in our community. So I think that's, yeah.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. So let's launch into talking, for those who may not be familiar with this concept, let's talk about what the actual love languages are.
So there are words of affirmation.
So what are some examples of words of affirmation?
Affirming how someone's feeling. If they're, and if you, how you're feeling, like if you're feeling sad or you're feeling mad or you're angry, that you affirm their feelings. You say, I can understand, I hear you, and you're affirming their feelings instead of trying to fix their feelings.
Sure. There's another element to this too. Words of affirmation, I think we can look at as just saying anything that's positive or affirming to your partner. So it might be, wow, you look amazing today. Or, hey, you did a really great job with dinner last night. Or, thank you so much for helping me with that letter I was trying to write last night. So anything that's really just giving them positive verbal feedback is what words of affirmation is referring to. And some people really, really eat this up. Like some people love hearing positive things from their partner. And if you're one of those people, then that's how your partner can best show you love. They can tell you that they love you verbally. They can tell you you look amazing. They can praise the acts that you've done. Anything like that that's just verbally positive or is an example of words of affirmation.
This one is interesting because for me personally, I just like anyone else, I enjoy someone complimenting me or giving me affirmation about something good that I've done, like that my food is fantastic, even if it's not.
Food is always fantastic.
Thank you. But you can quickly cross over that line for me where it doesn't feel, it's used too much.
Disingenuous. It starts to get disingenuous. Yep, for sure. I think that we all have a little BS detector that lets us know if somebody's being true or not, or if they're asking us perfunctory questions or giving us perfunctory compliments. That doesn't land right.
Nope.
Yeah. So let's look at the second one, which is acts of service. So what are some things that might fall under acts of service?
I don't know.
Well, that's why you don't have girlfriend. It's because you don't know how love languages are.
I'd say, yeah, I don't know. Tell me.
Acts of service are anything that's just doing a kind act for your partner. So it might be folding their laundry, or it might be taking their car to get a car wash. It might be running an errand for them. It might be giving them a massage. Anything that's like doing something in their stead, like doing something for them that's in service to them.
Just to be clear for my listeners, I naturally do that. I didn't have a label for it. I did not call it acts of service. I'm kind and thoughtful.
Yes. Yes. But for some people, if they came home and their laundry was folded, that would just make their day. And that would really show them that their partner loved them. And for other people, that's just not a big deal at all. So just noticing in yourself, if that's something that matters to you, if that's something that really displays love for you, then your love language would be acts of service.
I can definitely say that in my past, in one long-term relationship I had, they were working so hard that if I had been cooking back then, let's just say it would have been greatly appreciated to come home and not have to also be a part of figuring out the meal.
Yeah. Yep. That's a big one. Just, coming home to a home-cooked meal for some people, that act of service would be super valuable and loving. Yep. The next one is receiving gifts.
I know this one.
Do tell.
Receiving gifts. This is one for me. If you show up at somebody's house for dinner, or if someone's cooking for you, that you bring them flowers or bring them something nice. Also, knowing that is special. Not everybody actually sees that as something that's not their deal, but leaving a nice, just a card maybe that you send them when it's not on a special occasion, because you know that they love just that surprise, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I want to come back around to this because I have some questions. I want to get through the other couple of love languages, and then I want to circle back around to the thing that you just said, like about leaving a card when it's not a special occasion. So the other two love languages are quality time, which would mean, my full attention is on you. I'm not on my phone. I'm not watching TV. I am literally just spending time with you. And for some people, that is a super meaningful thing to offer. And then the last one is physical touch, which would be anything from holding hands to reaching out and touching someone on their shoulder to a hug to sexual contact. Any kind of physical touch is a lot of people's love language. I want to go back to the thing you were saying, because in trying to figure out my own love languages, I was thinking about this idea of what's meaningful to me is not gifts. So it wouldn't be the thing that you brought me. It would be the thought that you put into the thing. So I don't know how to quantify that. Like, is that an act of service or is that a gift? Because let's say that you went to the mall hurriedly on, the 11th hour of my birthday and bought me a $20,000 Rolex and brought it to me. Like, I mean, okay, not that I'm going to turn that down, but that wouldn't be as meaningful as if a month before my birthday, you started thinking about what I would really like and you bought me something that cost $10 that you had really put a lot of thought into. That's the thing that would mean something to me. So I'm unclear if that's a gift or if that's an act of service or something else. Or some combination of those two things, because it's not the material item for me.
See, you asked me about the act of service, and you knew that it was sort of complicated, and that it might cross over into the receiving gifts. And so I'm going to address that, because to me that was a trick question. From the therapist, it was a trick question. That I noticed that over time, these things they change, I think, for a lot of us, what you may value and what is your potential love language. And also, I believe that it's likely they could change at any given time, depending on what's going on in your life. Yes. But to your point, as I've gotten older, I am much more interested in, and with my friends, you guys included, we talk a lot about this, is that we're much more interested. We all have stuff. We have more stuff. And if we need something, we go buy it. I mean,
yep.
I could use that Rolex. I'm not buying that. So if anybody wants to give me that, I would take that. Yeah, but otherwise, yeah, we don't really like spending money on just things like that. And anytime you're giving that other kind of gift, it requires thought. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is the pleasure of knowing that somebody spent some time thinking about you, pondering like what really means something, or it comes across your radar screen and you go, oh my God, it's not their birthday, but they're going to love this. And then you grab it.
Absolutely. I think that's so important. And the card, if you go to Walgreens and get me, a $10 card because it's a super nice card, like, nah, okay. But if you hand wrote me a letter that cost you $0, that would be so meaningful. And so I don't know I don't know which of the love languages those things fit under, but just knowing yourself and knowing what's meaningful to you and how to communicate that to your partner. And then on the flip side of that, knowing what's meaningful to your partner and being able to love them in that way.
I think you should tell them the story about when Joe bought you a card to give to you randomly and you thought she was cheating on you and you cried.
Oh my God. I'm going to air my dirty laundry here.
Because you throw me trick questions right here in public.
I think this might have been around the same time that I cried in pickleball when the hormones were a little out of whack. But we have a Walgreens account that sends me an email automatically when like an email receipt. And one day I got an email and it said something like love card. Like that was what Joe was buying at the Walgreens. And so I was like, oh, she got me a card. That's so sweet. So I waited and she never gave it to me. And then I convinced myself that she was having an affair and she bought it for someone else, which would have been really dumb to buy that at the Walgreens because she knew I was going to get the receipt. So I started crying and I asked her about it and she was like, oh my gosh, honey, I got it for you. It's right here. Sure enough, it was already filled out and it was for me. So,
that's right.
And don't buy your affair cards at the Walgreens because the receipt.
You share a cost.
Don't put your phone number in if you're buying an affair card.
Oh my God.
I know. I did go through a little bit of a nutty period, just FYI. But I own it. I did talk to my own therapist about it too, who agreed that it was time to get on some hormones.
riding the Sarah roller coaster.
Riding the Sarah roller coaster. But look, now I'm just cool as a cucumber. I'm healed right now. Oh, so what happens, do you think, when things get off with the love languages? What do you think it is that makes it feel off?
Good question. I think when you are just, I think when you're not paying attention, when you're so caught up in your own stuff that you're not listening or you're not stopping long enough, you're also probably not stopping long enough to really share that time together. And you're just spending a lot of time thinking about, it could be because you're stressed with work, a lot's on your mind. It could be that you're just being self-absorbed. I mean, just in your own stuff.
Yep. I think it is just that concept of misalignment that, it's like you're speaking Spanish, but your partner's responding in French, that you have to realize that not everyone receives love the same way you do. And so you may be doing something that you think is really loving, and your partner wants you to do something completely different. And it's that willingness to, it's giving someone else the gift that they want to receive, not giving them the gift that you want to receive, which is what we do so often with these love languages.
I've thought about this. One of the most amazing things that you can get from somebody else is being understood or being seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a part of being seen is somebody recognizing in a moment when you're needing something that they know what it is you need. And for instance, for me in a past relationship, because I don't get sick very often, knock on wood, I'm kind of chatty in case y'all haven't noticed. But in my relationship, I was responsible for carrying the conversation most of the time. When I do get sick, I crawl in a hole, shut the door, turn the light off. I don't want you to come in. I'll send up a flare. If I need something, just leave the Gatorade at the door and I will let you know if I'm dying. And otherwise, I go inside myself to try to heal myself. And I don't want I'm not going to communicate a lot. And every single time over years and years together, I was approached with, what's wrong and why aren't you talking? And all I could think was, how could somebody not know me after so many years that if you are seeing your person, then you go, oh, okay, I know what's going on and I don't need something from them right now. I can take care of myself, right?
Not taking it personally that you're holed up in your room. Yeah.
Right. So I do think part of growing with somebody and then really embracing their love language, for lack of a better term, is a part of you growing into seeing them and then really knowing who they are and honoring that in all the best ways you can.
Yes, I totally agree. And you've said this several times, and I just want to reiterate that feeling seen is such an important piece.
Yeah. And I think you would think that would be easy, but I actually think that's pretty hard, because when you're needing to really be seen, I think oftentimes people get worried, defensive. Their own stuff gets in it very quickly.
Yeah, that it's so easy to take that stuff personally, even to get resentful that your partner's not meeting your needs or feeling unappreciated or assuming that your partner doesn't love you, when actually that's not it at all.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a good point. So let's go back to some of the critiques or some of the complications with this theory. I think the main thing that I've heard as a therapist is that this work isn't really scientifically validated. This isn't necessarily like academically researched work. But it can still be useful as a framework. It still can be useful as a conversation opener.
Yeah, I do think that again, it gives words. And whether or not those words are exactly the words that make sense to you, I think that you can read those words and get the essence of what is trying to be said.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. I think also, like you were saying with the sort of with the queer community, that there's this cultural lens through which we all view things. And that I think depending on what culture you came from or what kind of family you came from, it might depend on your gender, but that lens or the way of showing love could look very different among different communities, and that we don't want to oversimplify it in a way that leaves people out or that doesn't account for differences.
Yeah, one of the things that the research that I was talking about earlier was that we definitely, the queer community, we have different things that impact our love language, possibly, meaning that we have the social stigma oftentimes of our relationships, and potentially trauma, not that that's just in our community, but that a lot of those cultural things or can impact how you develop your love language and what's important for you to receive to feel safe.
Yeah, I just thought of one that seems pretty obvious, that depending on where you live, physical touch might not be a culturally safe option. So if you live in, a small town in the South and you're gay, you probably aren't going to be holding hands with your partner walking down the street. And that has nothing to do with whether you love them or whether you feel affectionate toward them or whether you want to touch them. It just has to do with whether or not you live in a place that is a safe act.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So the other thing that I see, and it's funny because I see this actually a lot in the therapy office, is people who use excuses for not showing their partner love in the way that they want to receive it. For example, like, I'm just not a touchy-feely person, or I'm just not a mushy person. I just don't express myself that way. And I think that these are excuses because none of this stuff is a heavy lift. It might be something that doesn't come as naturally to you, but reaching over and, touching your partner on the shoulder or grabbing your partner's hand, that may not have been something that you grew up with, but if you know that's how your partner receives love, it's okay to push yourself a little bit to show them love that way.
That's a question I have. It is when you're dating and kind of exploring how you match with someone, I do wonder if it's apparent to you that someone is very reserved around what is your love language. And you just mentioned a perfect one of the physical nature of things. So I want to hold hands with my person if it's safe to do that. Or when we greet, I would like to have a kiss just as a greeting, not a big old sloppy tongue kiss. Not that I give it sloppy anyway, but anyway, just if that is important to you and you know that the other person they aren't affectionate, they aren't, all of that does make them feel uncomfortable. What do you do with that? I mean, I think that potentially is just not a good match.
I think you might be right. If it's something that's super important to you and you know that person doesn't have it to offer, I think you might want to move on down the road. Lop them off like a bad limb.
Like a bad limb, just lop it.
At least that's what Rachel and I would do, but you do you.
I'm working on that.
Well,
and
I know that with, not to bring up too many personal stories of yours, but when you were dating, I can't remember if it was when you were dating Monique or Veronica. Uh-oh. But I do remember that you were dating someone who just didn't have the desire or the ability, I'm not sure which one, to have emotionally deep conversations and I know that's something that's really important to you. So I don't know if that would fall under like the words of affirmation but whatever that was part of your love language that wasn't getting met by that person. And I think that was ultimately what led you to stop seeing that person.
Right. And this is where it gets complicated, also, I do think these terms can sometimes make us feel they're simplifying things because this can get pretty complicated, is that I think to that Monique or Veronica that you're referring to, that maybe she has emotional responses or the ability to have deeper emotional conversations. I don't know. She just didn't want to bring it in. And so that's the other piece of it is I've probably been more challenged in this area of dating as far as people bringing in their intellectual capital. And that's also important to me. And I've dated some nice women who have plenty of intellectual capital, but they just don't choose to exercise it inside of their romantic relationship. And so that's where it gets a little more complex, because being careful to not assume that somebody doesn't have it. It's just that maybe they don't know how, or they aren't expending it in that relationship. And for me, you're right. Like, you're going to have to expend some of that, or we just aren't going to.
Or it's not going to be a match. Yep, absolutely. No. Yeah. So I think that the way that we start to decode this with our partner is, first of all, just having the self-awareness, knowing what your style is, knowing how you receive love, and being able to communicate that. Like, hey, it makes me feel really good when you hold my hand. And if you can frame it in the positive, I think that that's always just rule of thumb. You want to tell someone when they get it right and hopefully positively reinforce that, rather than criticizing them when they're doing it wrong.
Yeah. That's probably just a good rule of thumb all the way around.
Yep, for sure. And also asking your partner how they like to give love and how they like to receive love, because then that may help you with the translation. If they like to give love by folding your clothes, and if you come home and your clothes are folded, that's them telling you that they love you in their own way. That doesn't mean it's that you don't get to ask for it in the way that you also like to receive it, but just being able to interpret what they're doing as well.
This goes back to us. We talked about this in previous podcasts, is don't assume that anybody knows what you need or what you're thinking or what you want.
So important.
And I don't love these terms of, I love getting affirmations, or I want you to touch me a lot. I don't love it, but finding better ways or sexier ways to ask for those things or to talk. I do think that if you're a good communicator and you are a good listener, that those things get shared. If you are actually listening to one another, oftentimes someone is saying to you those things. And I think that if you're truly leaning in and you are focused and you're showing up and that's all you're thinking about, that you will hear a lot of what it is your person wants, needs. But on the other side of it, if it's not happening, don't assume that it's because they don't want to.
Right. They just may not know. And also don't assume that it means less if you tell them. We've said this, I've said this 100 ways. It's okay to ask directly for what you need. I think it sets you up for success, and it sets your partner up for success, because then they know what you want. And if you tell them what you want and they don't do it, that's a different matter. Are they digging their heels in? Are they being stubborn? Like, what's going on with that?
Yeah, that's a different conversation.
Yeah,
probably in a therapist's office.
Come see me, y'all. So think about sort of how to translate that. So let's say you're not naturally a words person. You're not someone who's just very effusive with your words. Send them a text. Write them a sticky note and leave it in their car. You can find little ways of doing this that don't pain you. The idea isn't to make yourself miserable, but it's like, how could I take a step toward this person in the way that's meaningful to them and still stay true to myself?
Yeah. The other thing, another way I try to do this, is subtle, but I do think it means something, is if I'm wanting to If I haven't been in touch with you, or I just really want to touch base with you, then a quick text and saying, I really do. I'm busy right now, but I miss you. I want to touch base with you. I miss catching up. And also, if I'm trying to make time for someone, then I always like to let them know that I am interested in saving space for them.
Yes. Yeah. And if their love language was either words of affirmation or quality time, those things are going to be super meaningful. Just the fact that you took the time to send that text is going to be, really helpful. And, for the example I gave of clients who are like, well, that's just not my thing. I just don't do that. It's like, no, do it. It's work. If you want to have a successful relationship, you got to make the effort to do it. And like you say, gifts aren't my thing. This doesn't require you to spend hours at the mall. As a matter of fact, that's probably not it at all. But it is, like you said, just seeing something in passing and saying, oh, my person would love that. This reminds me of them. Just doing small, thoughtful things that aren't stretching you outside of yourself, but that are, you're paying attention, I think is the main thing.
Do you think that I've been exposed to all variations of I love you? And do you think that the use of I love you every single time that you leave one another versus just using that more sparingly, I feel like I don't know, maybe some people love to hear it every single time you're apart, because in case you get killed in an accident, you're not wearing your good underwear. You have to hope that person is going to take care of you. Then so you say it. But I feel like I like those words to have a bit of an impact. And so I tend to like to use them at moments where I really want to catch somebody's attention.
Yeah, I think that goes back to sort of cultural and family issues, because if you grew up in a family that said that a lot, I think you might be inclined to say that a lot. It's interesting because I grew up in a family where we didn't really tell each other we loved each other. And then when I had kids, I wanted to make that a regular part of our conversation. And so I tell my kids I love them all the time, and they tell me they love me all the time. And when I started doing that with my kids, I also started doing it with my parents, and then my parents started doing it back to me. And so like that decision turned us into a family of people who all said that to each other. And I don't think we say it flippantly, but I do think we say it routinely. And other people don't. Other people don't. And I've also seen couples where that's such a big deal. We've been dating for a year and they've never told me they love me. It's like, well, that could mean something, or it could mean that they just didn't come from a background of people who said that.
Yeah, I think that one's very interesting. And I will say is, yes, your kids do say I love you. And I actually love hearing that. They could say it all the time.
Yeah, I like that too. I also know people that say it just without reserve. They say it to everyone. So somebody that you just met, they're like, love you when you leave, things like that. And to me, that's less meaningful, I guess. I think it's more situational that, oh, this is just a sweet person who happens to say that.
I do have another story to tell now. About Sarah's family.
Oh,
and Joe will appreciate this. One of those things where you don't mean for it to be offensive, but you do have to learn about what happens in somebody's family.
Oh God, I have no idea what you're about to say.
Girl, I come from a family that when you say goodbye and you walk out the door. You make it
with a monster.
Yes. And you give them a hug.
Your people, you say goodbye, and then you just
go out the door with Sarah and say goodbye. Go out to the door, and I'm standing out at the car waiting and waiting and waiting. And go back in, and they're all sitting around. They're still talking and everything.
No, that was just the preliminary. That was the preliminary goodbye.
Oh my God. I've never seen anything like it. It's a long, drawn-out process.
It's a long process. When I say we're ready to go and we're going to say goodbye, then you could just prepare for about 30 more minutes, and then we're going to walk out the door.
So when everybody would say goodbye, I'd just get the newspaper and sit down in the Barca Lounger and read until somebody tapped me on the shoulder.
Yes, that you just have to understand the language. That was like just the preliminary goodbyes were happening then.
I come from a long line of Irish goodbyes.
I have been known to do that one as well. Just slip out quietly. Oh, goodness. Well, let's talk about what we want folks to take away from this episode. I would say the first thing is that these love languages are tools that can be helpful, but they're not necessarily rules. So don't marry yourself to them, but just take the bits of this that can be helpful in your relationship and use those as they apply.
Yeah. And I don't know what else to say about this.
The other thing, I'll just carry us on this part. Don't worry.
I had a really hard travel day yesterday, and there's a bit of it still sitting on me.
Apparently so. All right. Well, let me just tell you what the takeaways are here. So the second takeaway is that your partner might not love the way that you want them to love. They may not show love how you want them to show love, but that doesn't mean that they don't love you. So try to be open to seeing the ways that they are showing love and then gently coaching them to show love in the ways that would be more meaningful to you. The third takeaway I would want you to pay attention to is that translation. So translating those love languages is a skill that you can learn. So this isn't something that's either happens naturally or it doesn't. And practicing that makes intimacy grow. So if you're not a words person, try the text or try the sticky note. Try figuring out ways that you can translate that are meaningful to your partner, but that also feel true to yourself. And then the last takeaway is try within yourself to do one translation experiment with your partner. So just looking at something that they're doing as a way that they're showing you love, or translating your love into something that falls within their love language.
Excellent job. That was very well done.
I mentioned this last time, but we have had some listeners that asked us to give some prompts for discussion or with your own partner this week. And so the two prompts that I would have for you this week are the first thing is go over these love languages and ask your partner what their two most important love languages are. So you don't want to necessarily pin them down to one, but just ask if what are the two that are most important to you. And then once they've given you those, ask them for 3 specific examples of how you could show them love in their love language. So for example, if they say words of affirmation, then 3 examples would be you could send them a text. You could tell them they look beautiful, or you could leave a sticky note on the mirror for them. So just ask them about 3 specific examples. If you have love language stories, whether those are funny, whether they're love language fails, or whether they're love language successes, we would love to hear from you. We really love it when you guys send us emails or DMs. Our email address is info@dateableaf.com. And you can also send us a DM on Instagram. That's @dateableaf. And please, if you haven't followed us on Instagram, we are not prolific posters, but we would love to have your follows and views on our Instagram. So we hope you will join us next week when we will be talking about apologies that don't count, how bad apologies keep couples stuck, and what a real repair looks like. And as always, thank you for listening to the Dateable AF podcast, where we help you find your happy ending.
Remember, be bold, be kind, and for the love of queer dating, don't text your ex. Stay dateable.
AF.